Welcome to the Recluse's Cookbook. I'm your host, Vinnie McHale. The Recluse's Cookbook is a monthly podcast where I, your humble recluse, engage in one-on-one conversations with persons of substance. People who may not get the column inches in the media, but their work or life's events are remarkable. In this episode, I finish a conversation that I began in episodes 1 and 2 of this podcast by talking with producer Victor McGowan, the man behind Constant Motion Pictures and some of Ireland's most acclaimed independent films such as Zoe Kavanagh's Demon Hunter and Thomas Andrew Quain's I'm Talking to You. Joining Victor on this podcast is actor Abe Smyth. Abe is a London-based thespian from Northern Ireland who has starred in several RTE productions such as Finding Joy and Can't Cope, Won't Cope. Abe is the star of Victor's latest cinematic release, Pogonophobia. Pogonophobia is a short film written by Damien Ryan and directed by his namesake Thomas Ryan. It's currently sweeping the short film circuit, and it was longlisted for the 2021 IFTA Award for Best Irish Short Film. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I give you Victor McGowan and Abe Smyth. What's the best way to describe what it is that you do?
That is a good question, and well, I suppose it's trying to inhabit characters from all walks of life, finding this is going to be a long-winded answer. Yeah, I suppose there's something of trying to access characters from all walks of life and try and allow the audience to empathize with them and show different perspectives to people. And that's sort of a big part of it, is displaying, being able to kind of get into the groove of someone from a different background from your own, but also finding that empathy and connection within them. And then hopefully bringing that to the audience. And, because I think there's something in it. So I like to travel quite a bit. And I always think it's quite good I always think there's something, I think seeing people from all different cultures and all, and you always see commonalities. And, well, of course, because we're all the same. But, it allows you to kind of put yourself in other people's shoes better than whenever you're locked into your one little bubble sometimes. So I think cinema can allow access to that to some extent. That's a very pretentious answer, but I'm just going to say that. I don't know if there's a definite answer there.
So if you had your choice, would you call yourself an actor or storyteller? Which?
I would say actor, but it's storyteller. Storyteller. I've just changed my mind.
What about yourself, Victor?
How I describe it is, I had no idea what a producer did when I left college. I always knew I wanted to get into film. And a mate of mine, he had a feature film script called Behind the Veil that he wanted to make that summer. And he said, "Do you want to help me make it?" And I said, "Yeah, great," because I'd never made anything before. And then it turned out what I was doing was producing. I did not know the level of work that was involved. I always thought producers were just people that had money. So then I realized that it was a coordinator, it was like a manager, but it was also somebody. What I like to do is I like being kind of involved in a creative sense. I like to. I mean, it sounds very vague, but I like to work on projects that I would like to see get made, and I just see myself as somebody that is quite, capable of bringing together the right team and allowing them just work together and then collaborate and make the project we all want to make. I know that's what everybody says producing should be doing. That's not always the case. I'm always, very happy to delegate. I don't like to micromanage. I like to just, I would consider myself more of a storyteller as well. I'm definitely far more interested in the creative end of it than I guess you'd say the organization of it. However, when I first, started producing, a lot of people in the low budget indie film world needed producers. There was nobody that wanted to do it, and I'd already come up my friend's film, so I found it to be a very effective way to get involved in as many projects as I possibly could within a very short series of space of time. And that's what I do today as well. But also on the film, I worked as an assistant director, because I would do that on larger projects. So that I didn't realize that what I was doing as a producer on set was actually what the assistant director did either. I found all that later when I started working on larger projects. So yeah, I don't know if that answered it, but if you're going to, like, you threw the storyteller question at Abe, and I quite liked it, because I would consider myself that as well.
We're here to talk about your latest release, Pogonophobia. Abe, you're the leading man in it. Can you tell us what it's all about?
Well, it follows the character Cyril, who is content, but he lives in his own bubble. He suffers from the condition Pogonophobia, that's how I pronounce it. It's up for debate, which is the fear of beards. And by restricting himself and being in this bubble, he has cut himself off from relationships, just living life in general. And it's kind of about him overcoming that and being able to live fully. And yeah, it's about, he's kind of let, it's about if things go unchecked, then how, they can build and without even realizing it.
So how did the project come about, Victor? How did it come to you?
I met the writer Damien Ryan at a funeral. So a very happy outcome of a sad occasion. He was a family friend, and I think it was sort of tragic death, so to speak. But his mum knew my mum and said, "Oh, do you want to meet my son? He's a writer. I heard you're a filmmaker. Why don't you meet him?" And I was like, "Okay," because you never know how these things might end up. And I meet this very very friendly, very kind of what's the word? Slightly eccentric, like my kind of humor. So I kind of clicked with him immediately, and we just sort of chatted a bit. And he said, "Well, I've just finished writing a short film." And I said, "What's it called?" And he told me the title, Pogonophobia. I didn't know what that meant. He said it's about a guy who's afraid of beards, and I thought that concept was absolutely hilarious. And he didn't tell me more than that. And I said, "Can you send it to me?" Because I chatted to him a bit more, and I sort of realized where his sense of humor was geared towards. I thought, okay, if this guy's writing is as good, in my opinion, as good as his humor, I think this would be something I want to jump on board with. And he sends it to me, and it was exactly, it wasn't just this like high concept, like stretched out in 15 pages. There's a lot more to it. There was a great characters in it. There were great jokes, and I had a lot of heart. And when I read it, I was imagining all the short films that I would see during festivals. As we all know, when we go to the short film screenings, we're watching to 10 shorts over the space of an hour and a bit. And most short films that they screen at festivals tend to be period, historical, or dramatic. There's not a lot of comedy, which is a shame. But I've heard that people are apprehensive about doing comedy because it doesn't translate as well as drama does across territories, like horror would, or we tend to know when something's meant to be sad in a drama or when something's meant to be scary. Whereas humor, it can be different. But there's always that one film, maybe in the middle of these short films that are being screened, that is like a nice little, like a break. It like takes you into this other world, and it just sort of makes you feel, feel a bit of joy after having watched it. And that's how I saw it when I read it. And I said, this is just something I would want to see. And then we just, from there, Damien was quite involved with, the organization of it, so we were director, and we got Thomas Ryan, who directed a film called Twice Shy. I met Tom before, thought he was a lovely guy, really liked him. And, he has the credentials, no doubt. So he was very happy to be sent the script. He was like so appreciative of it, which I thought was great. It's such a great sign. So he came on board. And then we started planning for about a year. We got a great crew. We got a great cast involved. And it just sort of took off from there. And it was a film everybody seemed to enjoy working on it. And I really hope they did. We had some very talented people, like Chris Carroll was our sound recordist. He was a sound recordist, and normal people, came on board just because we really thought this would be a nice film. And Donald Kavanagh, who was our DOP, we were a coup getting him, and everybody else was well involved. So I know it worked out really well. I actually enjoyed making it, which is a luxury.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always happy, but no, do you know what I mean? Like, it is a luxury when you're working everything fine. You just accept the fact that, you know, things are worth their slog, they're worth sort of the hardships in it to just get it done. You may work with people who are talented, but you may not like them personally. But, you know, people who give out about that are just being totally naive. You know what I mean? You're going to have to take it. So being on this one, it was a real treat. You'd be very spoiled.
It's a joy. It's a joy to go to the office, really, isn't it?
It is. Like, again, like, you know, when, I mean, yeah, oftentimes, you know, when the project is finished, like, it was all worth it and you do it again. I'm not saying like it's always, you know, a bad day when you go on.
Yeah.
I hadn't had as much fun or liked people as quickly as it was on this set. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just everybody liked the project or if it was just a chilled out set. I don't know. But that was a bonus. A real bonus thing.
Abe, you're no stranger to comedy projects. Like, I mean, you've starred in several RTE comedy programs in a supporting role. Am I right in saying this was the first time you headlined a project in a short film, anyway, and certainly in a comedy role?
In a comedy role, yes, yeah, yeah, a few different shorts and things like that. But in a comedy, yeah, because it was just, yeah, that is definitely a first. But it was something I was kind of, you're always looking for something a bit different, especially from the previous one, but especially, you know, overall, it's like you want to read never, you know, something that's fresh and something, or a new challenge. And it's that kind of thing where you read it and you're like, this is funny. This is like, you know, it's well written. It's like, I love the guys involved once I've met them. But you're just sort of, you kind of always want that feeling of, you don't know whether you're going to be able to pull it off. You assume you can, like, you sort of go like, well, we're going to just do it and we're going to see how the hell this turns out. And it's like, but it was so exciting. It was just to reiterate what Victor was saying, it was that kind of thing, you know, so many shorts with this very similar topics, very similar, like the comment, like the, you know, the sellable kind of story, the relatable, you know, it's always, and some of them are done very well, but, you know, for me, it doesn't really get me that excited, but it was just something so off the wall, just like completely different. And yeah, it was just a welcome challenge, and glad it seems to be being received quite well. And yeah, it's good. I'm really happy with how it turned out.
So, I mean, are you one of those that one of these actors that as soon as it's done, it's dusted, bang, move on to the next thing? Or do you like to go back and watch it and kind of go, got that right, didn't get that right, work hard, you know, that sort of a way?
I am not a fan of watching my stuff. I'm always curious, so I'll always at least watch it once, because I think there's, you know, I think sometimes you could sort of, I would feel like you're giving a bit of a disservice to everyone else's work, and also I'm curious how it turned out. You know, I'm fine watching it and being kind of separating myself from it that way, but I'm not. I mean, I'm definitely not someone that's going to sit down and watch just all my projects in a row with a box of popcorn. Definitely not. But yeah, it was interesting. Like, I was really excited to watch this one in particular, just to see how, because there's so many talented people involved. Donald's like with the you know, cinematographer and just everyone. It was really, because it, like Victor said, it was one of those ones where you came off just completely buzzing, and you know, there's often times where you do something and you can sort of feel like halfway through you're like, oh, this isn't turning out the way I kind of, in my head, in my mind, you know, I'd sort of been like, oh, this is really exciting, and it kind of, sometimes the excitement gets lost as you go, or you kind of, you lose a little bit of faith with it. But this was one where I came out even more excited about the project, so I was really excited to see it.
What does the daily diary of a jobbing actor look like?
Well, I mean, of course there's other jobs, but yeah, there's a lot of sort of, there is a kind of interesting thing where people sort of talk about acting as sort of, even if there weren't jobs, say you go an extended period of time, like during a pandemic, where there's less work or no work, whatever it is, it's important to sort of work on things in the interim and sort of give yourself, say, work on dialect. There's a coach that I've been sort of working with recently just to sort of work on areas, there's always you kind of want to focus or like expand on and things like that. So it's having those connections and just like grafting and setting yourself up for, for the moment when something lands and, you get called to, whatever role comes upon you, but you sort of want to be in the best fitting. So it's all about, it's grafting, just constantly chipping away and just like, there's things that you can sort of think, we'll deal with that later or we'll think about that. But it's, the pandemic has been an awful thing, but also a good thing in certain ways that you kind of became more culpable. Well, you're sitting and there's nothing, you've watched every episode of Sopranos or whatever for the third time or whatever it is, and you sort of can't avoid the self-improvement side of things. It's like, oh well, we'll actually just sit and and you get bursts of motivation. I don't know about yourself, but during lockdown I definitely got bursts of motivation and bursts of absolute lack of motivation, but it was quite interesting to sort of just I was playing about with Ed. She wrote a script for a feature and just different things. It's just like, so there's quite, the pandemic had good points for sure. And it's all about breaking down your time and sort of using it wisely, but also relax.
I mean, are you very, like, say, before a pandemic aside, like auditioning and stuff like that? Are you as proactive as you can be in hunting down auditions? And how do you go about it, I suppose, is the real question there. I mean, how do you motivate yourself to do it and then go out and do it? Because it takes a lot of confidence. You have to wait for the agent's call.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. There's definitely, I mean, in my experience, you can't just rely on that. It's all about grafting. It's all about sending, I mean, I'm not a fan of it, but because I'm not, it took quite a bit for me to sort of, like, I knew I wanted to be an actor, but I was always quite introverted, quite shy. Like, I was not the person that stood up in class. I was the person that, never would have put his hand up, never would have done anything. I just did not like speaking in front of people, which is ironic, considering what I've chosen to do. But so it took quite a bit of pushing myself, and just that was the elephant in the room. It was, it was sort of like, okay, really want to pursue this, but hate being in front of people, hate being the center of attention, hate. I'm not that extrovert. That just, like, that's just not me. So it just took quite a bit of grafting, and then there were a few moments where, say I bailed on, like, small auditions, like for whenever you're starting out, it's all like student shorts and all those kind of things. And there were a couple that I kind of talked myself out of going to, and you just, in my experience, you just I beat myself up over that. It's like, oh, like you never regret the ones you went to, because worst case scenario, you make an absolute tit out of yourself and you just walk out and have a laugh. And it's like, not many people get to go into a room and do some, for example, just doing some ridiculous dance in front of 60 people queuing up all to do the same thing. And it's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's a bit of fun, and most people don't get to go into a room and just do some stupid, like, completely let loose and just, it's kind of a funny, I don't know, I kind of got in my head that I'll never miss those opportunities, and it is the thing I want to do. So it's, I don't know, that motivation question. It's just, you just have to do it. I don't know. It's sort of that funny thing where you're on the journey and there's nothing stopping it.
You either do it or you don't.
Yeah, it is. I don't know, but there is a lot. Like, there is a lot of, there's certain people you kind of want to work with. There's certain, because I watch a lot of films. That was always my thing, obsessively into films. So there's always people in my head. You watch something and it's like, I need to work with this part, and it is sending those emails and just like finding out who was responsible for this side, casting, whatever it is. And then obviously in London there's a bit of the networking side that I'm not a big fan of, but it is a reality, honestly.
It's like the administration and it's like the filing, really, isn't it? That side
Yeah.
of it working.
Yeah. But so it will be exciting whenever this all calms down and there's a bit more, whenever we're able to actually socialize a little bit more.
What about yourself, Victor? What does your daily diary look like as a producer or an assistant director with Constant Motion Pictures?
I mean, with Constant Motion Pictures, that was set up a while ago it was just a way for us to try and experiment with any interesting project that came our way, including the one you starred in. I'm talking to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was, in terms of the daily diary, I've got a number of things on the go. Things would start to take about maybe 2 to 3 years for development. So there's just a number of projects that I'm currently working on trying to get off the ground. Pogonophobia is still doing the festival run. We're going to be in the Cannes Short Film Corner in July. And I'm also developing this writing project for Screen Ireland with Ripple World Pictures. It's set in 1983 in Shannon Airport, and it's like a Cold War satire, which would be fun. And there's a TV project that I've been developing with a friend of mine for, as we get older and we go back to it and we try and make it not steady better, but we learn how it would be much more palatable nowadays, when we first started developing it. So that's actually been fun. And because we're both doing other things, we don't mind coming to it every now and again, changing it, sending it to somebody, hearing why it didn't get accepted and go, right, well, can we work in these changes? Will it work? And, is it, and then we try again at another time. Assistant director, it was obviously tough during the pandemic. A lot of things simply stopped, but that was something I got into quite late. I started doing that in 2017 when I worked on the Western Never Grow Old. My girlfriend, Anna, was working as a production coordinator on it. I had a few days free, so I decided to be an extra. I decided I applied to be an extra, and I was a guy in a whorehouse. And the next day, my girlfriend says to me, "Oh, they actually need a trainee assistant director. Do you want that job?" Yeah. So I was the guy that was coordinating the extras, and of course, all the extras knew me from the day before when I was with them. And now they were looking at me, going, "Hang on, what are you doing now?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, actually, I'm actually now an assistant director." So I really enjoyed that. I really loved the work. You're on set, you're dealing with actors, you're just sort of keeping everything in control, which is something I was quite used to doing when I was producing my own projects. But I'm now actually, funnily enough, I'm studying to become a solicitor. The overall age to specialize in media law. I'm still going to keep Constant Motion going. That is still a number of irons into the fire, and that's always going to be something that's going to be a part of my life, including filmmaking. But I'm now taking this other route, and hopefully specialize in media law, which is
very good.
an interesting thing. So that's keeping me very occupied. But it's nice having the kind of the one foot in film and the other in an area such as a law. So we'll see how that goes. So it's quite eclectic.
You've mentioned there several times, and it's a word I love, and it's development.
Yeah.
I can't get enough of that word. Could you talk us in as to what that means and what you do?
Okay.
So, it's obviously different for different ones, but if you can kind of let us in.
Development for me, basically, let's say in terms of Pogonophobia, the minute I agree to do or take on a project, from that stage, from that point onwards, until it's edited and screened, that's what I consider to be in development. It's not done. Okay, it's not done until it's edited, but it's not really done unless it's seen by people. I mean, the project has to be viewed by people, has to get out there, has to be seen. And I just see it as a process of nurturing a group of people who work in different departments, so each have their own responsibilities, but said responsibilities have to gel with the other areas of it. So I'm very concerned with getting to know people as well as I can. Like I love, I mean, even like socializing. I love hearing what ideas they would have. And what was great about Pogonophobia is that it was a concept and a script that really inspired people to work on it. These are particularly some of the crew members. These are seasoned crew members who would normally not work on a project like this, but they just really took to it. So to answer your question, that's what I essentially think development means. There's many layers to it now. It could be writing, it could be rewriting, it could be casting, it could be location sketching, it's shooting. It's an umbrella term that I use. In other words, we're making the film. That's basically how I would describe it. And it's a very satisfying and rewarding process. There was a particular scene we shot in Pogonophobia where it was a difficult scene. I won't say it because I don't want to give this particular scene away. But there was a scene that was around Grand Canal Dock towards the end, and that was not difficult to do in sense of logistics. It was just something where the weather was such an important factor, and the actor safety was just an important factor. But it all just came together. Like, it worked. This very complicated scene that, in theory, worked out well just because the stars aligned. And I remember just going back to unit base, and I had this high as if I had just come home for a night out or something like that. And that was, you can't buy that feeling, that natural high. It's quite something. It's really quite something. Yeah.
So what are your future plans, respectively? I go to Abe first, and then I'll come back to yourself, Victor. But I know it's probably hard as a jobbing actor to have future plans. What would you like to see happen? What are kind of the projects you'd like to be considered for?
Oh, I mean, there's so many. There are so many. I actually don't. I don't want to specifically say anything and jinx anything. I'll say what I enjoyed during lockdown. And what I'm really enjoying at the moment. Succession is a really good show. It's a really, really good one. Watched that recently. HBO. It's phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. There's things like Succession. There's Watchmen recently was phenomenal. Film-wise, Robert Eggers, The Lighthouse, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of where a lot of my sensibilities lie. Recently watched all Twin Peaks, David Lynch, and the most recent season of that, where David Lynch returned for, which was just mind-blowing. So a lot of those kind of things, where a lot of it does, some of my stuff, my interests definitely lie with sort of horror, like art housey. There's a lot of that kind of, I like a bit of everything, to be honest with you. I'm trying to think what I thought Watchmen was particularly recently. And then upcoming, I developed a script with a friend recently for a feature. We are moving into, we're getting together not final draft, but we've got quite a lot of notes, and we're just working on that at the moment. And then we are going to send that out and start pitching. That would be something set in Belfast, a genre piece, and it would be a nice little part for myself, obviously. Yeah. The story was first with this one. It was more about, we got the story together, and then there was kind of certain characters kind of came into the forefront and stuff. But it's really interesting. Something I don't think people have seen from Northern Ireland.
Now that you said it, you hit the nail on the head there and something. And that's what I like about doing interviews. I completely forgot about it, but I am become a huge fan of the independent movies that are coming out of Northern Ireland at the moment. There's been some great stuff. The one that I always rave about is Bad Day for the Cut.
Yeah, that was really good.
It was just Northern Ireland has just really upped its game in that sense, and telling really, really good stories that you want to go out and see again and again and again. I mean, would you like to see more of that happening? And what would you like to see happen really with the Northern Ireland film industry?
Well, for Northern Ireland, for me, it's always been, I suppose it's a generalization to say that oftentimes they feel a bit samey and sort of quite, there have been, there are certain things that I just don't I think we've all heard a lot about and we don't need to really go back into. And I'm sort of, for me, my sensibilities are like, yes, I'm over in London, but working with my friend, he's got this idea of sort of going stories in Northern Ireland, but say with the tone or the visionary style of something, so I haven't seen, say, like a David Lynch from Northern, like a Lynch, like that kind of film, or like a Cronenberg, or like I mean, you could say David Fincher, whatever it is, but it's like those kind of people. Not everyone loves the term auteur, but that kind of like real visionary, really striking, or like really interesting cinematography, vibrant colors, like just, or like that kind of genre stuff where you're able to just go a bit more arty and a bit more like, I'd love to see that kind of really interesting, just different stuff instead of it always being quite gritty and real.
Yeah,
and there's obviously a place for that, but I think there's also a place for more. I'd love to see some real stuff coming out, to just like a voice coming out of Northern Ireland that's just really pushing that kind of artistic bent.
Yeah,
I'd be really interested to see that kind of thing.
It's coming though. It's coming. I do get that feeling of it. It is, from what I've seen produced in the last 10 years, it's absolutely phenomenal. Like, there's, The Survivalist was another one. Again,
it was a really good one.
Yeah,
really enjoyed that.
I mean, it just completely blew me away, and I was kind of going, how come there's not more of this being made? Yeah. And it's the kind of thing people do actually go in to watch. It's not completely left at the doorstep. People do enjoy it.
Yeah, like ones I love that our accent is sort of a bit more. I love the films seem to be getting more global. They seem to be getting more multicultural, like accepting of different accents, and that's the only way that people learn to accept or like to understand that. Because a lot of the time with Northern Irish, you travel somewhere and because they've never heard it before, it's you have to kind of accommodate and change, and whatever it is. So it's quite interesting. Like, I'd love to see films that aren't necessarily, they're kind of global in scale, but just have those kind of accents, but some
the
different
indigenous
stuff.
feel, and an indigenous feel to them, What about yourself, Victor? You've mentioned you've got a couple of things in development, and you're doing your FE1 exams. But is there like a project you'd love to kind of do? Is there anything that really kind of grabs your eye, and like a genre, like a period drama or something like that? What is there that you kind of I really want to crack at that?
Wow. Right. Oh, well, I mean, like, honestly, this project I'm developing for Screen Ireland is, a genre and a style that I think is quite ambitious, given, the year in which it's set, 1983, which was a fascinating time in the Cold War. Like I said, we're setting it, I mean, it'll span across a few towns, but it's primarily taking place in Shannon Airport, which, as has had a flow of interesting people coming to and from there, particularly in the 80s. You had Russian airflots landing there, getting refueled on the way to Cuba or South America, and you had Russian jets flying through there as well. And there's a lot of things that went on that we didn't know about. Like there was an incident where this Russian military operative, Petrov, ignored a warning sign that a missile was being launched and coming their way. And it happened 3 times. The little radar picked up what apparently was a missile. And because his crew had prevailed, because he assumed that if there was going to be a military strike by the US, it would not be a single missile. So nothing happened. There's no retaliation or anything like that. So we decided to kind of take a bit of artistic license and go, okay, well, we could insert our lead character, this woman, Colette, works at Shannon Airport, and she gets wrapped up in this sort of espionage Soviet-American sort of clash that takes place within Ireland that nobody ever knows about because it's still all ongoing. We're taking fascinating characters from history and sort of kind of putting them in there. But I want the humor to be, I mean, I really loved The Death of Stalin. I don't know if you've seen that. I mean, what a wonderful film. You know, a very, turbulent time in the USSR, and, got a lot of people who suffered and what have you. But the fact that the humor just shines through is kind of so inspiring with that style of satire. The situation itself is so serious, is how the characters react to it. And that's what I would like to try with this particular writing project. And it's interesting because I've never considered myself to be a writer. I always kind of, like, again, as I said earlier, I like to be involved creatively, but I never thought I had that discipline. So when I suggested this idea to producer Dominic Wright, he thought it was a mad idea, and he wanted to start working on it. And he said, well, why don't we just start writing it? So we actually are co-writing it together, and I'm sort of learning as I go what's required. But he's been in the industry for many, many years, so he understands structure a lot better than I do. He understands what like audiences want, what the studios would want. So I mean, this is actually, it's quite an ambitious project, and I hope it works out. But this is actually, this is a genre that I'd like to tackle well. It's very, very difficult, obviously, to do that particular kind of humor. Something, British, Irish, Scandinavian, and to some extent Americans are quite good at doing. So hopefully we'll get there.
So Pogonophobia, it's out, it's released. How's it doing out there? Kind of what is the lifespan for, say, lifespan for, say, a short film? Because as much as I've worked in the industry, I'm still not too familiar as to what it may be, or what's the potential out there for, say, a short film, for, say, the producer, and then of course for the actor. So whoever wants to lead.
Well, I mean, like short films, I've seen them as a calling card for what you are capable of doing. It's like it can be like a microcosm, like a microcosm of like what the talent of this project is capable of doing. So again, we'll see Abe in the film. The film's 15 minutes long. Abe features in it like every single scene, I believe. So what I would hope is that people would see that and just sort of see how much he gave it his all in this short little piece, and that talent can be brought into something kind of on a much larger scale. The time limit thing is an interesting one because, it's hard to get invested in something when it's only 15 minutes, despite the fact that our attention spans are incredibly short now at the moment. But like I said, it's people, when they go to festivals, they go and see short film, but they're seeing a load of them in one single go, and they can be making them feel all sorts of emotions. I know Netflix put out a short film actually that won the Oscar. I didn't actually see it, but I think, given, people like during the pandemic being at home and streaming services absolutely thriving at the moment, people might want to dip into a short film that deals with a topic or a style that they feel like watching for like a short period, or a 15-minute doc. People would watch it. They maybe just want to get the 15-minute information about it. Or again, with our film, it's just the log line in itself, I just think would draw you in. Like, it's quite a high concept one. I mean, people, they laugh when they hear it. They don't even know it's a real phobia, and it is a real phobia. I mean, granted, I think Cyril is not the average person who has it, but we had to make it. we had to make it fun. But the film itself is doing great. We premiered at the Toronto Comedy Feedback Festival there last August, and we came away with Best Cinematography. And we were recently at Fastnet there, which was down in Skull. We were in Kerry here, we were in Waterford here, we were in the Offline Festival. And like I said, we'll be in Cannes and the Short Film Quarter next month. So again, it's just maximizing how many people internationally can see the film, and just doing as well of a job as you could, respecting the craft, I mean, I don't need to tell you this, I don't need to tell Abe this, but you know, you give it your all every single time you do it, because then that's the only way people are going to like determine like your work ethic and what you're capable of doing. Like again, I said what I hope happens for Abe, and obviously he'll say what he happens with this film, but for me, I just hope it goes to show what my production company are capable of doing, that we have a good eye for what projects can actually turn out to be, and that it's a good film that's in our stable, and I think it's fans to us. I mean, I will say it's my favorite film I've produced. Like you know, absolutely. I'm very, very proud of it.
So what sort of currency do you hope to get off it, Abe? I mean,
I don't know any currency, but I would 100% with Victor with regards to, yeah, I mean, often I do think Colin is kind of a good, you know, for a director, for a writer, for an actor, it is, I find them quite fun, just because, like, you know, it's usually over quite a condensed little short, like a relatively short period of time. I think, were we 5 days or a week, Victor? 5 days?
We were 4 days.
Four, yes, really condensed. Actually, yes, it was. Sorry, I think I've blanked out some of the trauma. It was lovely, but no, it was just so. It was. There was a lot of moving. It was just a lot of back and forth and flying. And,
it was.
You know, it was very intensive. Yes, but no, it's sort of. Oftentimes they're kind of, or I find them. I think they're just like a burst of creativity. It's like get to explore, make. You know, you can make some really interesting choices and just sort of delve into. Same with directing. It's like get to play about with the ideas that come up in their heads, and it's kind of, you know, obviously it's doing very well, but usually it is relatively, you know, low risk, because often at times it's like a big sort of studio. There's not that kind of pressure. There's things like that, but it's like it's usually just an artistic burst that allows people in each section of it to hopefully display their best work and get seen that way and show what they can do. That's the way I sort of take it anyway. But it seems to be doing very well. So it's, yeah.
Finally, I asked that question I want to ask all people who devote themselves to their craft. What makes you do it?
I do what I do because I want to be able to leave behind some sort of grandiose, but a legacy, so to speak. Yeah. Like I really want that. Right now, I have a body of work that I'm very proud of. I've made a mark. You know, when I'm gone, if anyone, you know, what I've done, what I've put out there, hopefully will last. And I just want to be able to feel that I have like a purpose that is suited to an area and I can contribute to it. Like not necessarily having it only work for, you know, for what I want, but hopefully I can, and I hope I have made a decent contribution to it with all the people involved. I mean, that is why. It's a very grand, not vague, but expansive question. But you know, it's yeah, that will be why.
Abe, yourself.
Well, this isn't the reason it's going to touch on what Victor was saying, because I thought it was interesting, and I was thinking about it quite recently. I just thought there's something very cool about. There's something that is amazing about being part of cinema. Like cinema for me is probably it's one of the most important things we have, and it's because such a big part of my life. But there is something very interesting about, say, people like I love the films of Humphrey Bogart, and it's like, imagine that being your granda, your great granda, whatever it is, and being like, oh, I never met him. Oh, let's watch and kind of get to know them through all those films. And imagine having 40 films, 60 films, whatever it is, and being able to do that with like your distant relatives or whatever it was, or, you know, I think that's a very cool idea. I just wanted to add that to that. I think that is an amazing thing. But no, for me, I actually did go, I went to university and stuff. It took me a while to sort of figure out or like decide, because I didn't think it was possible to do. But really, it's just nothing else works for me. It's like, this is the thing that once I made that decision, it was so clear. It was like, it's hilarious sort of looking back and like, I have no idea how I was actively avoiding whenever people would have said, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up, be whatever it is, I would have nearly like tried to jump out of the room to try and not answer that question because I didn't know, because I would just, but it's so obvious in hindsight, which is funny. But it's just, all the graft, all the time in between, whatever it is, whenever you're on set, it's just the most fun. Like, it's that thing, completely blanking on the quote, you'll never work a day in your life if you do what you love. That kind of, I'm paraphrasing, but it's that kind of thing where, yeah, it's something I love, and it's like, imagine being able to earn a living. Like, imagine just doing that, just doing exactly what you love, exploring things, being creative, meeting interesting people, all with they're like-minded, interested in the same thing, and you have fun and explore characters. And it's just, for me, there's literally nothing else that I would want to do.
And that concludes this episode of the Recluse's Cookbook. Thank you for listening.